afternoon, everyone. Kalla here. Welcome to my live stream. Glad you could make it today. And I just realised I forgot to change a thing. Because I forgot to change the game name on here. Today we're playing more Hercule Poirot at the First Cases. Last time, we discovered who was responsible for the blackmail threat that was the reason we were here in the first place. But we still don't know who did the murder that also happened. So, I believe it was a suggestion that maybe it's not one of the guests that did the murder. Maybe they're not actually all covering for one another. Maybe we should investigate the staff. And so that's where we're at. So let's get back into it. Did we have any connections we need to make? Nope. This way? Yes. Ah. It looks like Elizabeth is on her way to see me. But at such a late hour?
Mademoiselle, what a pleasure to see you.
Detective,
It is a rather late hour to be wandering the halls.
Oh, yes, of course.
She doesn't seem particularly happy.
I do not feel myself, Detective.
If that is the case, you should be resting. Allow me to help.
No, that's quite all right. I will see to my duties and return to bed.
Yes, get some rest, Elizabeth.
Lizzie, excuse me, Elizabeth. Lady Van Den Bosch has been waiting for some time now.
Oh, yes, sorry. Detective Poirot was just...
I'll see to the detective. You just head on up. Off you go.
Good night, Detective.
Bonne nuit, mademoiselle.
Mademoiselle Elizabeth is certainly not herself. I thought the death of the Major had brought up uncomfortable memories of her beloved Luke, but it may be something else.
I'm sorry about her, Detective. As you can see, she is still not back to her usual bubbly self.
This weekend seems to have taken quite a toll on her.
She'll be right as rain in a couple of days. Now, what can I help you with?
As if by magic you appeared when needed. I would like to speak with you and the remaining staff. If you could gather them in the staff pantry.
At this hour, Detective? Is that really necessary?
I'm the detective here.
I shall be the one that determines what is and what is not necessary.
Exactly.
And this is very much the former.
As you wish, Detective. I'll see if Inge has finished preparing for breakfast.
And Mademoiselle Rihanna?
Yes, of course. I'll fetch her from the kitchen. Elizabeth may be some time with the lady of the house. Perhaps you'd like to start with us?
Very well. I shall speak with Mademoiselle Elizabeth when her duties are complete.
While I am gathering the staff, Mr. Beckers is in the library. If you wish to join him, I could bring you both a nightcap.
I wish to keep a clear head, but there is something I wish to discuss with Monsieur Beckers.
This is my opportunity to confront Monsieur Beckers about his dealings, or lack thereof, with Monsieur de Silva, without being disturbed. So to the library, Mr. Beckers. Alright. Where are you? There you are.
Monsieur Beckers, it is rather late. The other guests have already retired to their rooms.
I didn't even see the time. It's easy to lose oneself in a library this impressive.
Exactly.
That is something we can agree on, monsieur.
I suppose I should be heading?
A moment, monsieur. There are some matters that we must discuss.
Oh, what is it, detective?
I did not realize your relationship with Mademoiselle Conrad was so business-oriented.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Her proposal to make you somewhat of a star, a figurehead for the working man, what would you call that?
There was certainly no talk of making me a star. That is not the type of man I am. She wanted to write a piece on my work with the union, and I was happy to oblige.
Monsieur Beckers has always appeared to have the workers in words. Has always appeared to have the worker intentions at the forefront of his decisions. But perhaps the thought of being remembered for something great was too much for him to pass up. I was wondering, did your speech go the way you expected?
My speech? I'm not sure what speech.
You may save your false ramblings for your next audience. I am aware you spoke with the Major yesterday.
Whoever told you that has it wrong, detective.
Please, monsieur. The truth.
Okay, fine. Yes, the Major and I spoke, but it was not for long.
What was the manner of your conversation? From what I understand, it was not a light-hearted chat.
I was trying to convince him to speak with Ernesto. It's time we brought the strikes to an end.
And that was best approached by a shouting match?
I don't think he wanted to start it as a shouting match.
He wouldn't listen to what I said. I spent so long preparing how I was going to convince him, but men like him are only swayed by one thing: money.
Monsieur Beckers is not wrong. Had he tried to grease the Major's palm, perhaps he would have been more successful.
It is said that money is the root of all evil, but it can also be a rather powerful bargaining chip.
Well, he was bargaining with people's lives. If he had acted sooner, none of those men, my men, would have to die.
The Major oversaw security at the factories. Could he have done more to stop the strikes turning violent? Wasn't he the reason the strikes turned violent? I understand Monsieur de Silva had prepared a deal.
A deal? It was an insult.
And that is why you did not sign it?
I didn't sign it because the workers deserve so much more, not his pathetic attempts to get them back to work.
Did you think there was a chance for a better deal to be made?
I know there was. He's a pompous swine that cares for only himself and filling his pockets.
I'm sure I have heard that description of Monsieur de Silva before, or at least something similar. Push on Jacqueline's influence over Hugo.
Mademoiselle Conrad can be quite convincing, can she not?
She has certainly taken several wealthy business partners by surprise with her knowledge and prowess. She knows how to use her womanly powers to get what she wants.
But she did not surprise or use you?
Me? Used me? Don't be ridiculous, detective. There were no games played at my expense.
Monsieur Beckers has quite a way with words, and he has a fan of his own voice. Perhaps I should allow him the opportunity to speak and open up without too much interruption and forcefulness. So curious? Even though she was able to convince you not to sign a deal?
No, she just reminded me of what I was fighting for.
Let's go with this one. You claim that you refused Monsieur de Silva's deal as it was not adequate for your men.
And I stand by that. It was an insult.
A rather bold move to make such a decision on your own.
Your job is to support the workers, but nothing you have done has gotten them any closer to the results you promised.
I may not be perfect, but I've done everything I can.
Your efforts fell short in every respect. You claim to be the voice of the people, but you care about no one's voice or benefits but your own.
It's not as easy as just signing a piece of paper, Detective. It is a heavy weight to bear on one's shoulders. I consulted with others.
You yourself spoke of Mademoiselle Conrad's cunning in business.
And I told you, I was not one of her targets.
Tell me then, what was it she reminded you of? The acclaimed man of the people you would be known as if you pushed the factory owners for more?
It wasn't like that at all.
From where I am standing, it was she that was manipulating the terms of the deal, and you in the process. You were merely her pawn.
Okay, yes, I know.
We got him.
I shouldn't have listened to her. But what else could I do? Remain an unknown my whole life? I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt.
It may not have been your intention, but we both know the result. You rolled the dice with those men's lives for fame, and you lost.
Pardon my intrusion, but are you from a large family?
What does that have to do with anything?
I have often wondered about the competition siblings face in a large family.
When you're young, it is the best feeling to know you have family that will stand by you, without even being asked. It is not until everyone starts carving their own path that you realize you're walking yours solo, and those that were beside you are now miles away. My older brothers were the athletes of the family. They both played soccer, and were the infatuation of every teenage girl. I'm sure you have seen the type.
Oui, monsieur, but I can assure you that was not I.
Then there was me. Quiet, timid, a shadow of the Becker brothers. My voice and very presence was forgotten and ignored. Nothing I could say or do would ever reach the bar they had set. But I always knew I was destined for great things. Years passed, and now that I no longer stood in the colossal ombre of my brothers, I could become my own man. When the position of union leader was posted, it was my chance to finally be heard. You hear politicians speak of the little or the common man? Well, that was me. And I knew what we wanted and what we needed. When I spoke, others listened. I held their gaze with a sense of pride, a sense that what I was doing was for the greater good. It was supposed to be my crowning achievement, lead the men to victory over the money-grabbing oppressors. But instead, all I did was lead them to their deaths.
Monsieur, it was not at your hands that these men died. The blame cannot lie solely on your shoulders. Those responsible will be punished for their crimes. That you must trust.
Monsieur Becker's story is one of fighting to have one's voice heard, be it a single or one of the masses. I'm afraid he may be remembered for what he did, but not in the way he so hoped. Oh, wait, do we have some connecties to do? Nope. So I guess we go back out again. And hopefully... Well, speaking with Monsieur Beckers was not the reason for me being up at this hour. He was able to fill in some of the blanks regarding the Major. But not in getting any closer to discovering his killer. Perhaps the staff living quarters will. The staff living quarters. It's downstairs for that, right? Good afternoon, Hunter. I'm doing fine. How are you? It's the staff pantry. No, that was the butler's pantry. Staff quarters. bunk beds, huh? A decent supply of logs. I just hope the staff also get to make use of them with this weather. So, what's this on the floor? We can't look at the stains, apparently.
Huh.
A rather luxurious jacket. The initials read F.H. Felix Hagen. That's the dead guy. The major, right? Are these scruffy boots his as well? Why would they be left here, though? Good question. There does not seem to be anything of interest in here. You just woke up, huh? That is fairly early for a Sunday morning, at least for me anyway. I'm glad I am a guest of the house. I am not sure how well I would sleep in such a contraption. See, I've got 3 sets of bunk beds and a hammock. Do they have that many staff at the moment? I thought they'd lost some. Newspaper? They are a few days old, and do not hold a candle as to what transpired here this weekend. Yes, because it's not like we can get any new newspapers when we're all snowed in. I've already looked at that. Is there anything else to look at in here? Cupboard that we already... Oh, there we go. Luggage. A war medal that I assume must belong to the Major. The items I have found are most intriguing and require an explanation that I believe only the staff can give. I shall meet them in the pantry.
Detective, what can we do for you?
You can help me by telling the truth, and in the process, help yourselves.
Sorry, Detective. It's a bit late in the night for riddles.
It is no riddle, monsieur. If I do not receive the truth, you shall all be charged as accessories to murder.
Detective, I think maybe you have been locked in this house for too long. We have already...
You have told me a version, and now I require honesty.
Did we have any connections to make before I go into this? Yes. Okay. Ah, the medal was with Archibald stuff, was it? Ooh, what if I could put the Major's coat so Hugo's seeing the Major outside?
The pieces of the puzzle are finally coming together.
The Major would not have left such a fine coat in the staff area. Someone must have worn it. More importantly, however, who wore the Major's clothes? Someone wore the Major's coat. That's not going to go to anything new because we've just gone down from 1 link to 2. Worn out boots. Elizabeth is upset. Archibald, for some reason, has a medal of the Major's, and he staged a phone call. Hannah claims she took ice to the Major. She's probably also lying. What if I combine these two?
Another success. I never doubted myself.
The theory that the Major had been killed during dinner was nothing but a ruse. Why are the staff covering for the real time of death? Why indeed?
Monsieur Sterling, is there anything you would like to add to your story?
I'm not sure what you think I have done, Detective.
Let us not string out this charade any longer.
The telephone call the Major received.
From his associate. I've already told you, Detective. I don't know who it was.
It's because there wasn't anyone on the phone.
Do not worry yourself on such details now. I suppose they were lucky to have called when they did. Otherwise, they may not have gotten through at all, with the telephone lines being down as of yesterday.
Aye, Detective. Lucky, I guess.
Monsieur Sterling is no fool. I believe he is aware I suspect him of something. Perhaps some carefully worded questions are all that I needed for him to slip up. You were the last to see the Major alive when you brought him the bottle of whiskey in his study, correct?
Whiskey?
You took a bottle of whiskey to the Major. You spoke with Monsieur Demire en route.
Aye, of course. It was a bottle he picked up from his last visit to Scotland. Rather smoky number from the Highlands. He was saving it for a worthy occasion. Drowning his sorrows must have been fitting enough.
First, he does not remember a bottle at all. And as if by magic, he recalls the exact details.
Or was it the one from the West Coast? You'll have to excuse my memory, Detective. It's not what it used to be.
Can you explain why a medal belonging to the Major was amongst your belongings?
Oh, you found it. Thank you, Detective. I've been looking everywhere for it.
If I had lost a war medal, I would not stop until I found it.
It's not what you think. I was...
Exploiting a dead man's military achievements for your own personal gain?
Nothing of the sort. He asked me to clean them up. I must have dropped it into my pocket when I was putting them back. An honest mistake.
Never have I heard such a pathetic excuse to explain a stolen item in one's possession. I would expect a better lie from an enfant. I cannot claim to be an expert, but I presume a medal like that would be of quite some value.
I wouldn't know. Probably.
Your father was in the military for many years. That is what you told me.
He was.
And your family still keep his medals?
They were sold.
And why was that, monsieur?
Is my family on trial now, Detective?
Only you, monsieur. And I repeat my question.
Because we needed money.
Therefore you know that medals are worth money, and therefore you tried to steal the Major's.
Voila.
Monsieur Sterling was well aware of the medal's value when it found its way into his belongings. You claim the Major asked you to clean his medals for display purposes?
No. He keeps them safe with some of his old military documentation.
Is that a typical job for the head butler?
He trusts me to do a good job. I told him I used to clean my father's, so he asked me to do the same.
And where does he keep these items?
In the storage room. I know where everything is, so it's just easier if I fetch them for him as and when he needs them.
I do not recall seeing any military memorabilia or keepsakes when I was in the storage room. Could there be another storage room he speaks of? Are you happy here at the Vandenbosch house?
It's certainly better than my last.
You are paid a fitting wage for the work that is asked of you?
I'm sure the lady of the house would not want me discussing it, but I should not complain.
That is not the most convincing answer, monsieur.
Between you and I, we all work very hard here, and it would be nice if we were rewarded for it.
It seems Monsieur Sterling is trying to convince me, as he has himself, that his light-fingered actions are justifiable due to the petite wage he receives for his honest work. Ah, Pokemon Yellow playthrough, huh? Yeah, it's been a very long time since I touched that game. Actually, I think I can see the box for it on the shelf.
Please don't go anywhere. If I require more information, I shall call on you again.
Alright, did that result in any connections we can make? Yes. One over here. Okay. Worn out boots and Madame paying the staff very little.
Magnifique.
Yeah. I should have known at first glance he's belonged to a member of the staff. But who? Staff members' boots. Okay, that's a new connection. Elizabeth being upset is probably not related to that. What if someone else wearing the major's coat and the boots belong to a staff member?
I should not be surprised by my own skills of deduction.
A staff member dressed in the major's clothes and took his position out in the snow for the guests to see. Why would they do this? Why would they do that? To make it look like he was still alive, clearly. Yeah, I expected you'd probably have to use an emulator, right? I don't think there's an easy way of getting the footage otherwise. I suppose maybe there was the thing that you could connect to the bottom of the GameCube. But then again, I'm not sure the GameCube's easy to connect up to a capture card as it is. Oh yeah, there's a version on the 3DS as well, isn't there? Is Pokemon Yellow on the Switch yet, or is it just Red and Blue? So I know they are. I'm pretty sure I've looked around everything else in here. Inga.
Mademoiselle, I shall keep my questions brief.
So it isn't yet. Yeah, so basically the easiest way would probably be the capture card in the 3DS, except that I seem to remember that connecting a 3DS up to a capture card is also a pain. I looked into it once. I think you need either some physical modifications or I think it's the new 3DS. I looked into it once. I can't remember what game I was considering streaming. Yeah, using the emulator is definitely the easiest way, isn't it?
I don't know what else I can tell you.
You have been honest with me so far. All I request is that you continue to do so.
Oui, detective.
I am already aware of Mademoiselle's involvement with the blackmail, but I am not sure if she is also connected to the Major's murder. Tell me what happened before you found the Major in his study.
It was frantic in the pantry. We were working hard to make sure everything was up to scratch.
Go on.
Then Liz burst in, asking for Maman Ray's help.
Her help with what, exactly?
I don't know. She took Liz to one side, and I was needed in the salon. We spoke just after that in the pantry.
Elizabeth needed help with something, huh?
You did not question what she needed help with?
I was too busy. I love Liz, but she sheds a tear at almost everything these days. Although, I have never seen her look so pale.
Mademoiselle Elizabeth still looked pale when I saw her earlier. I understand the amount of help that goes into keeping a house of this size running, but Madame cannot expect the staff to work if they are ill. Perhaps Mademoiselle Rihanna can clear up the reason for Elizabeth's panic.
Merci. I shall return if I have any further questions.
Elizabeth panicking is kind of potentially suspicious.
Mademoiselle, I shall be as quick and precise with my questioning as possible.
Okay. What do you need?
My condolences on your brother's passing.
Merci. He was a good man. Taken too early.
Forgive me, mademoiselle, for not extending them earlier, but I was not aware of your relationship.
He was my only brother. And he died doing what he believed was right. If I ever get my hands on who took him from me...
Didn't her brother die in the riots that were instigated by the Mage's Man? Or am I misremembering? I understand why she is so angry for her brother to have been taken from the world at such a young age, and in such a violent manner. Violence cannot be met with violence, but I am not sure Mademoiselle feels the same. Tell me about your brother's involvement in the riots at the factory.
You say the riots, but it was the strike he was part of. They started the riots, not the workers.
Yep, I understand that.
By they, you are referring to the security forces. They were brought in to keep the peace.
Security, huh? They were brought in to make an example of them. It was all peaceful until they arrived.
Why would they need to make an example?
So that the workers would stop rallying. No one is going to go on strike if they think they'll get killed. The security you talk of were armed and ready. The workers were pigs to the slaughter. What chance did they have?
It is obvious Mademoiselle is still upset about her brother's death, and rightly so. If the events were as Mademoiselle described, I cannot comprehend how the security forces were able to get away with such despicable acts of violence. Pardonnez-moi, Mademoiselle. I know we have spoken on this, but you took ice to the Major, correct?
Yes.
This was before or after Archibald took him a bottle of whiskey?
Before.
You are sure?
It may have been after.
The whiskey is kept in the cellar with all the alcohol?
It is.
Then you must have noticed him going into the cellar and returning with a bottle through the pantry, no?
Yes, I suppose I did. It must have been before then.
It took only one question for Mademoiselle to doubt her own story. What I still cannot see is why the need for the lies. Tell me about Elizabeth yesterday.
What is there to say? Being locked away in the pantry, I don't see her for most of the day.
That may be, but she came looking for your help before dinner was served, did she not?
She wasn't feeling well, that's all.
And she came to you?
I told you, we are a family here. The girls come to Mama Reh if they have a problem, and I fix it.
See?
When I saw her earlier, I must admit she was not looking herself. Perhaps I should check on her.
No! Just leave the poor girl. She'll be fine after another bowl of my homemade soup. She just needs her rest.
Well, unfortunately, Mamare, I need to talk to her as much as I'm talking to you lot. I'm sure Mademoiselle Rihanna is a loving mother figure to the staff while away from their families, but her eagerness to keep me from seeing Mademoiselle Elizabeth again does not sit comfortably.
Merci, mademoiselle. That is all for now.
Alright. You've got a new connection to make, so probably something that Mademoiselle Rihanna said. She believes the workers didn't stand a chance. She's unsure about the timings. Those are the new things. Oh, there's a new thing over on Elizabeth's. Rihanna claims Elizabeth was under the weather. Why do they all sound suspicious and like they're lying? Maybe because one of them did it. Maybe these two?
Things are beginning to become clearer.
How can either of them forget something so important from only the day before? Archibald and Rihanna are unsure of their stories. Okay, that's got to connect to something. And it could be this, or it could be that one. I think this one?
Come, my little grey cells. We must think logically.
You don't think it was Elizabeth?
I must take a different approach if I am to uncover the truth.
It's this to something. Oh, wait. This to there.
What a revelation!
Both Archibald and Rihanna played the parts very well. That is, until they became complacent. Why did the staff feel they need to fabricate stories? New link, so we need to connect this to something. Archibald and Rihanna fabricated the story. That up to a staff member impersonating the Major?
Some would say a lucky guess. I would say a moment of genius.
I almost had to relay their stories back to them both. I obviously cannot trust a word they have said. Why are the staff hiding the truth from me? Because they may have been involved.
Things are beginning to become clearer.
It is a revelation I had not expected. The staff were involved in the murder. While young Inga is guilty of her own crimes associated with the blackmail, it is Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna that have been an integral part in covering up and obscuring the truth of how the Major was killed. Alright. The staff were already suspicious to begin with, but this confirms their involvement. Are all the staff members involved? Probably not Inga. I think Inga was just sent up to discover the body. We do need to find Elizabeth. Ooh. Except first, I think we've got to do some connecting over here. I am close to revealing the truth about the Major's murder, but I must understand the roles that each and every person involved played before the final puzzle is solved. Okay, 3 connections to make in this. Elizabeth mourns for Luke. Rihanna is distraught about Luke. Well, those are their connections together, but I don't know if they're connections to the murder. But we'll see if we can. Yep, okay, we can connect that.
Skills of deduction.
I cannot imagine the pain they have felt losing Luke. His memory will live on in their hearts. Okay, but since we're down to 2 from 3, so we're not connecting this to anything. Rihanna helps little Elizabeth after coming downstairs. She looks white while coming. Are we connecting this to that as well?
Is there
No.
something I am not seeing?
Okay. A staff member impersonated the Major. Archibald staged the phone call. Inga feels disconnected from her peers. This to that?
I must act
No.
on thought and fact, not on impulse. What a
There we go.
revelation!
This is going to be like Inga isn't involved. I'm confident Inga is not part of the cover-up that has clearly been a focus for the other staff. Okay. One more connection. Which has got to be somewhere between these four things. This to... No, wait, we tried this to that already. This to that?
Order and method. That is the way to...
This to that?
I cannot see the
No.
logic in this.
So probably not about the stage phone call. Actually, unless it's over to here, actually.
This will not get me any closer to my goal.
But that's 3 mistakes, so it'll tell me which ones they are. This one to this one.
Some would say a lucky guess. I would say a moment of genius.
Elizabeth looked pale and the other members of the staff were busy with their duties. She must have found the body. But did she play a part in the murder? Right, Elizabeth found the body. So...
I
So
must
that,
act
no.
on thought and
Oh no, Elizabeth found the body and Rihanna helped her.
the pieces
Duh.
of the puzzle are finally coming together.
Although her duties are primarily focused in the kitchen and the pantry, I don't recall seeing her. Ooh, 2 connections. So we're connecting this to 2 things, which is probably this over here.
Another success. I never doubted myself.
Impersonating the Major was Rihanna's role in the plan. Why it was necessary, I am not sure of yet. Why did she feel the need to cover for Elizabeth? So, and down to here?
Magnifique.
Yep. Archibald's acting skills came into play to cover for a member of the staff. But who? Okay, and then we're going to probably connecting these 2 together.
I cannot see
No.
the logic in this. Perhaps a
There's definitely this to something. This to that?
Some would
Yeah.
say a lucky guess. I would say a moment of genius.
The staged phone call was Archibald's assignment. He went to great lengths to protect Elizabeth. But why did he feel the need to cover for Elizabeth? Well, young Inga is guilty of her own crimes associated with the blackmail. It is Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna that have been an integral part in covering up and obscuring the truth of how the Major was killed. What if it was Elizabeth and she acted like she found the body? Maybe. Why would Elizabeth kill the Major, though? I now have all the pieces of the puzzle. I must return to my room and place them together until the result reveals itself. Now we need to speak to Elizabeth. It is time for my little grey cells to go to work. I am so close to uncovering the truth. We've got some more little grey cells today. We do. Okay, we've got one thing to connect over here. And our newest things. Defensive. Oh! Yeah, we established that the wound was like a defensive thing. So did Elizabeth kill the Major in self-defense? add this to Y, maybe?
I must take a
No?
different approach if I am to uncover the truth.
Yeah. Discovering for this above. What if it's that of a
This will not get me any closer to...
water open with a pocket knife? There are so many things you could stab someone with.
Come, my little grey cells.
Okay.
We
Please just give me a hint, game. Oh, it was just this to that.
I should not be surprised by my own skills of deduction.
How could I have allowed this to slip through my grasp? Elizabeth is the murderer. I cannot believe I didn't see it, blinded by my own trust. When I look back now, the clues were there, staring me in the face. I spent my time chasing connections between the guests. Their motives and agendas were more than enough to raise suspicion. But while distracted by them, I failed to notice the one absent member of the household. What I still cannot grasp is why. I promised myself that after that fateful day in the capital, I would not let my judgment steer me adrift. But once again, it is I left looking the fool. There is nothing more that can be done tonight. I must at least try to rest my head in preparation for confronting Mademoiselle Elizabeth in the morning. Chapter 8. The Truth. What in the world? Had an elephant escaped and made its way to the second floor? It sounds as though it is coming directly from above me, but that is the storage room. Is it time to find out if I was right about there being a secret storage room inside the storage room? Right, up the stairs we go. Sliver of light. Right, so the store. It's this side, isn't it? Storeroom. Lovely sliver of light across the carpet. Oh, which Poirot got in the way of as well. That was good. Ah, Archie. Why would Monsieur Sterling be in here clattering around in the dead of night? New mind map unlocked. Archibald is up in the middle of the night making some amount of noise. I must find out the extent of his behavior. Right, we can't make any connections there yet. So now we're gonna have a look around, maybe? Is there anything to look at, or it's just talking to Archibald?
Monsieur Sterling.
Oh, detective, I was just...
Hiding the evidence? Oh yeah, this display cabinet definitely moves. Look at those marks on the floor. It absolutely moves. There is definitely a secret door behind there. I think I was right.
Please, I eagerly await to hear what reason you give for being in the storage room at this hour.
A butler's job is never...
I am no fool, monsieur. You have spun enough stories this weekend.
Honestly, detective, you don't trust anyone.
Yeah, that's kind of required for the job, sir.
And with good reason.
My patience has all but run out. What are you doing in here?
I've been thinking about my time with the family.
I often think on fond memories, But it does not take me to a storage room in the middle of the night.
There are many memories held within these walls. I just wanted to see them again.
Monsieur Sterling sounds as though he has plans on leaving the house. It sounded as though you were moving furniture in here.
I didn't realize the noise I was making.
Obviously. Were you preoccupied looking for another of the Major's medals?
Of course not. I already explained.
No, monsieur. You attempted to dupe me again into believing one of your stories.
Please, detective. I know you know how it ended up in my possession. I was just trying to get some extra money together to send home. I can't lose this job. If Lady Van den Bosch found out...
Theft of a medal would be the very least of your problems.
You have done nothing but deceive and abuse your position in the house.
Deceive? I'm sorry that I lied to you about the medal.
This ain't about the medal, Archie, and you know it. Even when confronted, Monsieur Sterling still remains steadfast and he refused to acknowledge what he has done.
Would you care to explain the fake telephone call? It was purely for my benefit, no?
Why would I fake a telephone call?
The same reason that Mademoiselle Rihanna dressed in the Major's jacket in the snow. To allow not only the guests, but me, to believe the Major was still alive.
I didn't kill him, detective.
I wasn't saying you did.
I know, monsieur. But I also know that you helped the one that did to cover their tracks.
It wasn't like that. We were just trying to help. She had no part in it.
But you and Mademoiselle Rihanna risked your freedom to help Elizabeth.
You never let on. How long have you known it was her?
Like a couple of hours.
Monsieur, I am Detective Hercule Poirot. I only show my hand when I deem it necessary.
Oh, that is the more appropriate answer.
You will be taking her away then.
She will stand trial for what she has done.
But you don't know the full story. She is just a servant in this house. If she is arrested, that will be the end for her.
Yeah, you did pretty good at guessing it there, Hunter. I had my suspicions from when we saw her. Towards the beginning of the stream, but that...
If Mademoiselle was only protecting herself, as you both have claimed, she will surely be found innocent.
You have still not explained what you were doing in here.
The Major's military storage box.
The one that stored his medals.
Yeah, that's true. This is your first time in one of these streams, and you're here at the very end, and solved it almost immediately. So well done.
Amongst other things, yes.
And those other things are?
I had to protect her. If you found it when searching the study, you would have carted her off then and there.
It's got a knife in it, has it?
Whatever it is you have hidden, it will not remain that way for much longer.
Monsieur Sterling is obviously hiding something. I should perhaps conduct my own search for it instead of relying on his cryptic messages.
I need a moment.
Yeah, just let me... This has clearly been moved. Let me at it. Oh, it's... Yeah, there's clearly a door behind here. It's got one of those things above it, like the saint things. Yes! Like this should be up there.
Oh.
One of the many saint carvings from around the house, abandoned in a box. Why is this saint carving in here? Because it belongs up there! Oh, come on, what else do I need to look at for you to let me at it? Let me at it, game. What am I missing? Oh, is there a connection I need to make somewhere? Yes. Detached saint carving missing room. Hidden room, even. The detached carving may relate to a door in this room. This would explain Archibald's presence. Secure room accessible from within the storage room. Which is probably where he hid them.
What a revelation.
Archibald must have hidden items in the secret room. I presume this exists within here. Somewhere. Okay. Right, now I can... Yes, there we go. Aha! A hidden room. It seems there are more secrets in this house to discover. A military knife. A prestigious-looking knife, likely belonging to the Major. A letter. The last will and testament of the late Viscount. It seems he truly loved Angeline. Last will and testament. Declaration. I declare that I, Viscount Edwin van den Bosch, am of sound mind. This last will expresses my wishes without undue influence or duress. Article 1. In the event of my death, I hereby appoint my wife, Cassandra van den Bosch, as the executor of the Van den Bosch estate, and I leave the remaining wealth held in the Van den Bosch name to my only daughter, Angeline van den Bosch. Any outstanding debts, expenses of my last illness, funeral expenses and administrative costs are to be paid from the Van den Bosch account at the National Bank of Belgium. To my daughter Angeline, you are the apple of my eye and the brightest star in the sky. Never allow your light to fade for even a moment. To my wife Cassandra, thank you for the many joyous years. We have laughed, we have loved, and we have brought the most precious of gifts into this world together. I trust that you will protect her and prepare her for a future full of opportunity and hope. Viscount van den Bosch, Monsieur Victor Rigaud and Petit Solicitors. An expensive lighter. An expensive looking lighter. It looks to have, unfortunately, been through a war. Come, my little grey cells. I believe we already know something about this mystery. But I'm gonna do that after I've looked at this, I think. We'll do the connectees later.
Aha.
The Major's military service box. It contains letters and keepsakes. Okay, right. Well, let's do some connectees. The military service box. It contains an empty canteen and a war map. Expensive lighter with an unrecognizable symbol. Could it be related to anything else here? The knife? Oh, the knife has a red thing. That knife's got blood on it! Blood looks to have been stained into the blade despite clear attempts to clean it. What can I now confirm? Okay, and that rose engraving definitely goes with the symbol on the lighter.
Things are beginning to become
That's connection
clearer.
1. Alright, see you around later, Hunter. His lighter must belong to the Major. The army symbol all but confirms this. But don't I already have this in my possession? The Major's lighter from the garden.
Another success. I never doubted myself.
The lighter I found in the military box is certainly the Major's, meaning the other one is not. talk to Archibald about that. It's okay. The blood stain on the knife makes that the murder weapon.
The pieces of the puzzle are finally coming together.
The murder weapon has been found. Elizabeth must have used this in the study. I need to talk to Archibald about that too. Alright, Archie, I got some questions to answer.
There is no use lying anymore.
No, there isn't, is there? When I inspected the garden yesterday, I found a lighter I assumed belonged to the Major.
He always had his regiment lighter that he received in the war on his person.
And yet, it was not his regiment emblem that was engraved on it.
My father's. It must have fallen out of my pocket. You still have it, Detective.
Monsieur, you have stashed evidence, manipulated a crime scene, obscured my investigation, and yet it is a lighter that you worry about most?
If it is my path to end up behind bars for what I have done, so be it. It is Elizabeth that you cannot allow to be locked up without the truth being told. I have heard how you fought for that young maid before. Florette, is it? I only ask that you do the same for Elizabeth.
Although the cases differ greatly in severity, I can envision the similarities in how Mademoiselle Elizabeth will be treated by those in positions of authority or social standing, even before she is trialed. It is my oath as an officer of the law to uphold justice and fairness. Mademoiselle must be given the chance to prove her innocence before the courts as any other suspect. The absent murder weapon.
You found it.
Even the secret area that has been created here is not concealed enough to stop Detective Hercule Poirot.
I couldn't just leave it at the scene for you to find.
The Major was killed by his own knife. The knife that protected his life during the war would eventually be the one that ended it.
It was in his holster when he attacked her. He had hold of her arm. What else was she meant to use to get him off of her?
He attacked her, huh? I mean, reasonable. I cannot imagine the Major would have given his knife up easily. She must have been in close proximity to reach it. Perhaps he did attack her, as she claims.
She didn't plan any of it, Detective. She was only defending herself.
That is what Mademoiselle told you?
She did, and I believe her. You think you knew the Major, but you had no idea. He was a monster and had more secrets than all of us combined.
I mean, I didn't like the Major, so I don't know what you're trying to say.
That may be true, but that does not excuse what she has done.
Put yourself in her shoes for a minute. If a man like that had attacked me the way he did Lizzie, I would have done a lot worse to him.
Worse than stabbing him? Mademoiselle Elizabeth has told Monsieur Sterling a version of the events that suggests she was attacked by the Major. I struggle to believe that she would make such a story up, but I also did not believe she could do such a thing as commit murder.
I need a moment.
Right, what have we got that's new? Archibald claims the Major attacked Elizabeth. Lighter from the garden belongs to Archibald. And Archibald was in the garden. Oh, what if we connect that to the open window?
Some would say a lucky guess. I would say a moment of genius.
If the only thing I found was Archibald's lighter, he must have collected something else. What else did Archibald collect from the garden? collected something dropped from the window. That's going to be the knife, isn't it?
Another success. I never doubted myself.
Archibald dropped the murder weapon from the window, collected it, then hid it in the secret room. And we must talk to him about it.
There is no use lying anymore.
It was you that I saw in the garden that night.
When you asked me yesterday about seeing someone out there, I thought the game was up.
That does not explain what you were doing out there.
When Lizzie took me to the study, the knife was still in the Major's chest, and I knew I had to get rid of it. I dropped it out of the window, knowing no one would be going outside. It was fine for the time being, but I couldn't risk it being found when the snow melted.
So you collected it under the cover of darkness and stowed it away in here where you thought no one would find it.
Hello, Nick. How are you doing?
After your questioning in the pantry, I knew you were onto something, and I couldn't leave it here.
And where did you plan on moving it to?
Honestly, I don't know.
Collecting the item and hiding it to save Elizabeth. You must truly want to protect her from the law. And welcome back, Haunter.
There is no use lying anymore.
I have one last question. Why?
Why what? Why I would risk everything to help Lizzie?
What? What did you miss? Elizabeth's the murderer. And Archibald and the cook have been covering for her. That's what you missed.
Exactement.
Because she is family. If you were in that position, you would do the same.
I can assure you, monsieur, that I would not.
Then perhaps that says something about you, Detective. I would do anything for her. For any of my staff.
What's the motive? We're not certain at the moment. Archibald says that the Major attacked her. And I mean, we did establish that the wound was a defensive one, so maybe that's true.
Even if it means crossing the boundaries of the law.
Without question.
The lengths that Monsieur Sterling would go to protect someone he considers family is admirable. But when those lengths break the very laws that are in place to protect the innocent, they cannot be ignored. I ask that once your morning duties for the ladies of the house are complete, Mademoiselle Rihanna and yourself wait in the staff quarters.
Aye, Detective, but please, you have to help Lizzie. It was all an accident. She doesn't deserve to spend the rest of her days behind bars because of that man.
If she is put behind bars, it is because that is what the courts have decided upon.
Detective, you can't be so cruel.
It is not cruelty, monsieur. It is the law.
After all these further revelations, my mind is as busy as Monsieur Goulet's chocolate shop. I have all the pieces of the puzzle to deduce why Elizabeth killed the Major. Now I must allow my little grey cells to put them together. Alright, time to work out the motive. After finding those documents in the hidden room, things are starting to fall into place as to why Elizabeth may have killed him. Okay. 2 connections. Alright. What have we got? Oh, he was dishonorably discharged from the army. He isn't receiving a suspension. He killed prisoners of war? Oof. Well, that's what's connected to the blackmail, clearly.
What a revelation.
His information would have destroyed his reputation if unveiled. A strong motive for blackmail. Okay, so that's not a new thing. So the Major was in a bad financial state. Is that because he's not receiving a pension?
Magnifique.
Yeah. The Major's financial struggles must have left him in need of a source of income. Who could the Major have turned to in his time of need? He was desperate for a well-paid job. Ernesto?
Things are beginning to become clearer.
The Major needed the job to go ahead. It was the only way to guarantee money in his pocket. What could he do to ensure the job would be complete? Oh. It's possible that Elizabeth could be mad at the Major because he was part of the security group that killed her fiancé in the strikes. Could be related to that. Major needed to ensure the job was done. Inga said, yeah. The Major security force attacks first of the riots. That one.
I should not be surprised by my own skills of deduction.
To secure his payment, the Major must have ordered the attack at the strikes. What were the consequences of the Major ordering the first attack? So that connects in with Luke dying.
The pieces of the puzzle are finally coming together.
The Major's actions, unfortunately, led to the death of Luke. And all for greed. Who would have been the most affected by this? And so we bring this down to Elizabeth.
The pieces of the puzzle are finally coming together.
Elizabeth has probably lost more than anyone else involved. She may have sought her revenge. Elizabeth doesn't seem like the vengeful type, but all signs are pointing to her seeking revenge for her beloved Luke. If I am to confront Mademoiselle Elizabeth, I must be at my best and my little grey cells at their most alert. It is time to at least try and rest. I have no time to wallow in my lack of sleep. I must confront Mademoiselle Elizabeth and hopefully finally know the truth of what took place.
Detective Poirot, I'm glad you're awake.
What are you here for, Angeline?
Bonjour, mademoiselle. It has certainly not been a night of peaceful sleep. There is something that we must discuss.
Please, detective, I'm not sure I can take any more surprises like last night.
I'm afraid this may be the most upsetting of them all.
You have found Felix's killer, haven't you?
I have. And the guilty party will certainly come as a shock.
I take no great pleasure in telling you this, mademoiselle.
Detective, please.
It was Mademoiselle Elizabeth that was behind the Major's death.
You must be mistaken. Elizabeth could not do such a thing.
I assure you I am not. It is something I spent much of last night deliberating. When you spoke of the telephone lines being out of order, it made me question the conversation I thought I had heard Monsieur Sterling make with the Major before connecting the call to him.
But it hasn't been working all weekend.
Exactement, mademoiselle. That is when I knew I had once again been lied to.
On my way to speaking with Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna, I met Mademoiselle Elizabeth.
She was meant to be resting in the staff quarters. She has not been well.
I am afraid that was yet another lie, orchestrated to keep her from incriminating herself.
Why would you think that, Detective?
I only managed a few words with her before we were quite abruptly interrupted by Monsieur Starling.
I must admit, he has a habit of speaking over the other staff.
It was much more than merely disturbing our conversation. It was done with the intention to prevent Mademoiselle saying something that she should not.
So, Elizabeth killed Felix, and then Archibald helped her cover it up?
In its simplest form, oui. I have heard it directly from the horse's mouth.
You have spoken with Elizabeth already? Did she admit to it?
I haven't managed to speak to her about it yet.
Not Elizabeth, but Monsieur Starling.
Were you not woken last night by the tremendous amount of noise coming from the storage room?
I wasn't. What were you doing in there, Detective?
It was Monsieur Starling that I found in there. I was taken by some surprise to hear anyone awake at that hour.
What on earth was he doing?
He claimed he was merely reminiscing of his time with the family.
You don't believe him?
It did not take long for me to uncover the truth of why he was there, and the location of the Major's murder weapon.
Do you know of the hidden area within the storage room?
Hidden area?
A room that held all of the Major's secrets.
I had no idea. Did you discover the reason for his blackmail?
I did. Were you aware he was dishonorably discharged from the army?
Dishonorably? What does that mean?
I will not hide this truth from Mademoiselle, but I will try to be as delicate as possible with the news of the Major's prior actions. I am sure you are aware of Monsieur Zachariah's troubles he faces from his time in the war.
Yes, Gideon told me about the conversation you had. It is really quite upsetting.
Zachariah was adamant of the Major's cruelty during the war, but the extent was not known until now. He killed a number of prisoners, men that were friends of Zachariah.
Ooh, direct connection.
Surely not. He would not do such a thing. They must have been trying to escape.
I am afraid not. They were in fact unarmed.
Oh, Detective.
It is the reason he was discharged, denied his military pension, and I believe the reason he fled England.
He had been such an important part of my life for so long, but I feel like I hardly knew him.
Monsieur Sterling was adamant of Mademoiselle Elizabeth's innocence.
Innocence? You said it was she that killed him.
It was her hand that held the knife, but he was quite insistent it happened in self-defense.
In all of the years I have known her, she has barely even raised her voice. I cannot believe she would do something like that out of malice.
I mean, me neither, but...
The whole truth cannot be known until Mademoiselle Elizabeth has told her story.
I allowed my perception of her character to conceal any thought of her involvement. It seems I am not the only one. The time has come to confront Mademoiselle Elizabeth.
Will you allow me to be present?
Sure.
I think that is an excellent idea. I hope your presence will calm her and will perhaps allow her to speak more freely.
Please, Detective. I know she has done a terrible thing, but I beg of you to give her the time to explain herself.
I will offer Mademoiselle Elizabeth the fair trial that she deserves, as I would with any suspect.
Thank you, Detective Poirot.
Would you bring Mademoiselle Elizabeth to the study, where we will not be disturbed?
Of course, I'll find her immediately.
Dun, dun, dun. I believe what Monsieur Sterling has already told me about the events that occurred between Mademoiselle Elizabeth and the Major. I do not believe she would have had to do what she did if he had not attacked her and pushed her to the point where she feared for her life. I must listen to her story, the truth, and only then can her punishment be determined.
Mademoiselle Elizabeth, merci for joining us.
Miss Angeline said you requested to see me urgently.
We have some serious matters to discuss, and I would like to waste no further time.
Oh, yes, Detective.
How are you feeling, mademoiselle?
Still not quite myself.
I was surprised when Monsieur Sterling hurried you to assist Madame Vandenbosch last night.
I should not have avoided my duties for so long. The house does not stop because I'm feeling a little under the weather.
That is true, but you cannot be expected to complete all your tasks if you are not in the right frame of mind.
Honestly, Detective, it was best for me to not sit and wallow anymore.
My investigation has taken me down many paths this weekend.
Have you been able to uncover who the blackmailer is?
The blackmailer's identity has been established, and they will pay the price for their crimes.
Wonderful news, Detective. You can put it all behind you now. You must be thrilled.
I would not say thrilled, knowing that such a close friend has betrayed us.
Mademoiselle is correct. What I have learned over this weekend is that people are not always as they appear. While they may give an impression of being a friend or ally, they can in fact be something completely different.
And, what of the Major's killer?
Well, mademoiselle, that is why I have asked you here now.
I posed the question to all of the guests, what their thoughts on the Major were. Now I extend that question to you.
I'm not quite sure what you want me to say, Detective.
Your honest opinion is all I ask, and, s'il te plaît, do not hold back. No one else felt it necessary.
Yeah, everyone else was quite happy to tell me how much they didn't like the guy.
We only spoke when there was something in the house to be done. We did not speak of interests or pastimes.
You knew of his work with Monsieur de Silva?
I only know what is required of me to know, and that is very little.
But you were aware of his work as security at Monsieur de Silva's factory.
I was.
The factory your beloved Luke worked at, before he was cruelly taken from this world.
Yes, Detective.
I understand Luke was not only involved in the strikes, but was on the front line.
Yes, that is where he spent his last moments. Standing shoulder to shoulder with his fellow workers.
The resulting riots were a terrible tragedy. One that I hope we will not have to see or experience again. Something that could have been avoided had the Major and his team done what was required of them.
Nobody deserved to die that day. Not my Luke.
Do you blame the Major for his death?
Detective, what kind of question is that?
It is a straightforward one.
He...
Mademoiselle, if there is something you wish to tell me, now is that time.
I'm sorry, Detective, I just don't know how to answer it.
Let us consider what we know of the Major. He fronted the militia that attacked the workers at the strike. You were aware of this? You finally had someone to blame for Luke's death. Someone conveniently located in the same house, alone in his study.
No, Detective. It wasn't like that.
Tell me what happened with the Major on the evening of his death.
I was only in here trying to prove what I heard Mr. Beckers say. I was going to report him, I swear. Miss Angeline, you believe me, don't you?
I want to. I am still trying to understand it all myself. Why don't you start from the beginning?
I was delivering Miss Angeline's dress to her room when I heard Mr. Beckers arguing with the Major in his study. They were ever so loud. I thought the whole house would have been listening to what they were saying. Mr. Beckers was talking about the factory strikes and how it was the Major's fault. He told him that if he didn't own up to his crimes, he would go to the newspapers.
I cannot imagine the Major would have taken kindly to Monsieur Becker's threat.
He didn't. He called him some rather uncouth names before Mr. Beckers left and went downstairs, and made sure to keep out of sight. After the altercation between the Major and Master Gideon, you went to speak with him outside, and I thought I could look around his study without anyone knowing. I had to know for sure. If it was true, he deserved to be held accountable.
And did you find the proof you are looking for?
I found a payment from Mr. De Silva, but there was nothing incriminating about that. I was so nervous. I felt like my heart was beating out of my chest.
And then you saw the blackmail note.
I recognized the writing on the envelope. I couldn't believe it. How could he do such a thing to Angeline? To the family that had taken him in?
Being a bit haunted.
Common sense would determine the Major was another victim of the blackmailer.
So Elizabeth assumed that he was the one writing them, huh?
If I'd have used common sense, I wouldn't have been snooping around alone in his study in the first place.
Fair.
I heard the footsteps in the hall, and before I could move, the Major was standing in front of me, demanding to know why I was going through his belongings without permission. I tried to come up with an excuse, but nothing came out, and when he saw the letter in my hand, it was like Dr. Jekyll turning into Mr. Hyde. I tried to move around him towards the door, but he hurled something towards me, and it crashed against the wall.
That would explain the damage to the wall.
I froze. I have never been so scared in all my life. I thought he was going to kill me there and then.
And you thought you would beat him to it?
Oh, Detective, you make it sound as though I had it all planned. He lunged forward and grabbed me by the arm. I tried to push him away, but he was too strong. His grip just got tighter and tighter. If only you had seen the look in his eyes, I dared not even scream. I saw the sheath on his belt. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to hurt him, but he wouldn't let go of me.
Also, why is the Major allowed to walk around with a sheathed combat knife? I mean... Not gonna say he was asking for it, but you know. Actually, I probably am gonna say that.
So you took your opportunity to put an end to it all.
I just wanted to get him off me. I didn't want to hurt him. I reached for it and I jabbed it at him. His grip instantly loosened and I ran straight out the door and didn't look back.
You did not even look to see what state you had left him in?
She had just been attacked, Detective.
Oui, please. Continue.
I ran down to the pantry looking for Rahana. She took one look at me and knew something was wrong. I explained to her what had happened and she went to find Archie. She said he would know what to do. We went back to the study and he was still lying there, motionless. Archie said that no one would believe me. That if someone like me killed someone like him, I would be sent straight to the gallows. He left the letter so you would find it. He said that if people knew what the Major was really like, then they wouldn't care what happened to him.
So I am to believe that it was Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna that cleaned the scene and orchestrated a plan that included a fake telephone call and dressing as the Major so that he may be seen. You had nothing to do with that.
I swear I had no idea that is what they had done. Archie just told me to stay out of sight. I am no master criminal.
Then Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna will be charged for obstruction of justice and impeding my investigation.
Please, Detective, they were only trying to help me.
Yes, but they were actively impeding the investigation. That is a truth of what they did.
If they wished to help you, they should have brought all of this to my attention immediately instead of committing more illegal acts.
Surely you haven't forgotten what happened with Florette. She was only accused of stealing a bracelet. I killed a man.
It is a day I have not forgotten, mademoiselle. Even for a moment.
Without your help, I don't stand a chance. Please, Detective Poirot, you are the only one that can help me.
Oh, Elizabeth, why didn't you come to me?
I didn't think you would believe me. I felt so guilty. And when it was announced yesterday that he was a victim of the blackmailer, I wanted to tell you everything. I came to find you last night, Detective, but Archie stopped me. I'm sorry.
Come, my little grey cells. Let us solve this mystery. Little grey cells time. Okay, we've got one link to make. What are our new things? Elizabeth stabbed the Major when he wouldn't let her go. That just goes to why, I think.
Order and method.
No?
That is the way to solve the problem.
Okay. Elizabeth was looking for proof of the strikes. This one to that one?
Is there
No?
something I am not seeing?
Oh, this to that.
Magnifique.
Duh. Elizabeth's story confirms Margot's claim. The Major's death was the result of a defensive strike. And there'll probably be something here that we then connect to that, right? No, it connects itself. Finally, I have solved the case of the Major's murder. I must admit, I take no joy in declaring Mademoiselle Elizabeth as the killer, and I wish she had never been put in such a position at all.
Oh, yes, Detective.
The Major's missing knife?
I don't know where it is.
If you have been honest with me until now, I ask that you continue.
I'm sorry, I really don't know. Archie dropped it out of the study window and he said he would deal with it. I couldn't bear to touch the thing.
I have the knife in my possession, and I believe that from Mademoiselle's reaction, she does not know what became of it. She is unaware of the efforts that Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna went to mask what she had done. Monsieur Sterling was not lying when he said he would do anything for her. Merci, mademoiselle. S'il te plaît, wait in my room.
Please, I was only protecting myself. I didn't want to hurt him. He just wouldn't let me go.
Oui, mademoiselle. I know. Mademoiselle tells quite the harrowing story.
I cannot imagine the Major acting in such a way, but Elizabeth could not make up such a story.
After learning what I have about the Major's character this weekend, I would not question the lengths he would go to in order to keep his secret hidden. I know that you share a close bond with Mademoiselle Elizabeth, but you cannot allow your personal feelings to taint your belief of what took place.
But she also shares a close bond with the Major as well.
She has committed a terrible crime, but she will live with that for the rest of her life. She is not a cold-blooded killer.
If what she says of the Major's attack is true, she acted in self-defense, and in the law's eyes, a crime has not been committed. I will do everything I can to make sure her story is heard and a fair trial is conducted.
I believe the version of events that Mademoiselle Elizabeth has confessed to are true. The Major having fallen into a fit of rage at the prospect of his sordid secrets coming to light. He attacked the young Mademoiselle and drove her to do what she had to protect herself. She put herself in a dangerous position, but there is a small part of me that commends the duty she felt to find justice for her beloved and the other workers that lost their lives at the Major's order. If the telephone line is now working, I must call in my findings. With the remaining snow, it may still be some time before they arrive.
Mademoiselle, it is time I addressed the house.
Are you sure? What will you say? What if they do not listen?
I can assure you, they will.
Elizabeth was right, though. She's just a servant. What if they...
Mademoiselle, when Detective Poirot speaks, they will listen. Would you ask the guests to convene in the library?
Ooh, we're gonna do it in the library.
What of the staff?
I have told Monsieur Sterling to remain in the staff quarters with the others. When the authorities arrive, they shall be dealt with. You have been of great help to me throughout my investigation, and now that it is over, I have one final request.
You only need to ask.
While I am speaking with the guests in the library, would you watch over Mademoiselle Elizabeth in my room?
You don't think she will try and escape, do you?
In her position, I do not know what she might try. But I trust with you there, any potential ideas of such a thing will be squashed.
Chapter 9. The denouement.
Detective, you have spent more time making us sit and wait for you than anything else.
Madame Van den Bosch, if you think I have spent my time focused on anything besides uncovering the Major's killer, you are sorely mistaken.
I'm sure you will be eager to share your findings with us then.
All in good time, Madame. Firstly, to understand the truth of what has occurred this weekend, one must know the timeline of events that not only preceded the Major's death, but succeeded.
We are all well aware of what happened before, Detective. You can save your breath.
You are only aware of what the guilty parties wanted you to believe. But now I shall apprise you to the true events. The reason for us all being here, you know. The altercation between Monsieur Demire and the Major, you know. The body of Monsieur Hagen was found while we were all sat enjoying a most delicious meal. That you also know. But what was kept from us all was that his body lay on the study floor for far longer than was thought.
It was that servant. She found him.
S'il te plaît, monsieur. It was indeed young Inga that found the Major's body lying lifeless in the study.
So it was her.
Monsieur, I will not allow for any further interruptions. I return to the Major's body. If we are to believe the scene that we were presented with, the Major must have been killed during the first course of our meal, a meal that none of you left, even for a moment. Speaking in the evening, you all confirmed one another's alibis, and although there was doubt in the validity of some, I confirmed that they were indeed all true. What I could not understand was how a man came to be found dead, and every guest accounted for at the time of death. That is until I questioned the latter. Monsieur Beckers, I shall now allow you to speak. You saw the Major smoking a cigar in the snow. Is that true?
It is.
False. You saw what you are meant to see. Someone in the Major's coat standing outside, giving the illusion that the Major was still very much alive. Monsieur da Silva, on the afternoon of the Major's death, do you recall hearing a telephone ring?
Now that you mention it, I have not heard a single ring all weekend.
Correct. The telephone lines have been down for the duration of our stay, meaning the telephone call that was received and promptly directed to the Major's study was yet another act of trickery and deceit. But it did not end there. When I entered the study for the first time, it was obvious someone had already been there and falsified the scene to stage a burglary and clear away important evidence, including the murder weapon. What followed was an investigation that had already been hindered. But even those lengths were not enough to derail me for long.
I think we have all had enough of your self-praise, Detective. Perhaps you would like to tell us who killed him now?
Madame, as I'm sure you would expect, it is not as simple as that. What many of you do not know is the discussion that was had between the Major and Monsieur Beckers earlier that day.
What has that got to do with anything? I told you I didn't kill him.
That I know to be true. What you do not know is that it was not only his ears that heard your spoken words.
I hope you are not implying I had something to do with it.
No.
No, madame. There was another. Mademoiselle Elisabeth. You are all aware that the Major was hired by Monsieur da Silva to front the security during the workers' strikes. What very few of you know is that it was the Major's order that instigated the vicious attacks on those unarmed men and resulted in numerous deaths, including Mademoiselle Elisabeth's fiancé, Luc. Monsieur Beckers confronted the Major, declaring that he was to hand himself in. That is what Mademoiselle Elisabeth overheard. Now, knowing the truth, she waited until the Major was away from his study. After he stepped outside, following the confrontation with Monsieur Demier's fist, it looked to be the perfect opportunity, or so she thought. The Major returned and found her looking for the proof she required to hand him over to the authorities.
If the maid bumped him off, why hasn't she been arrested?
Because we can't
The
get
events
police
that
here yet.
followed in the study are not those of a cold-blooded murder, but one of a young girl that had no other option but to protect her own life.
Sounds to me, Detective, like you have taken a shine to this young girl and would rather protest her innocence than arrest her for murder, the crime she has committed.
Jeez,
Actually,
this
it's
is gonna be a
manslaughter,
confusing
isn't it?
story.
Not murder.
Mademoiselle, I ask you this. You have seen the Major's anger before, oui?
What if I have?
How do you think he would have reacted if someone was to find proof that he had committed a terrible act, and that if made public, would surely result in his incarceration? Exactement.
It is quite the story you have told, Detective, but all I have heard is that Elizabeth overheard a conversation blaming the Major for her fiancé's death, and she murdered him in revenge.
Yeah, we know that you
A
don't think
servant
much of your
killing a
servants,
man that is
Cassandra.
as revered as he was. She will face the loops.
Revere.
I am not denying that a man has lost his life, but it is not the crime of murder that you all believe. While the Major did not deserve to die in such a way, it was his actions towards Mademoiselle Elizabeth that drove her to defend herself in any way she could. Mademoiselle Elizabeth will be punished, but we will let the law decide the severity of her punishment.
She has played you like a fiddle, Detective, acting the innocent victim. She will be arrested and hanged for her crime, like every other cold-blooded killer.
Here.
Give her what she deserves.
The girl has got to pay for what she's done.
Well, you're all terrible people. I surely could not have been clearer with what occurred in the Major's study. They have all forgotten their own perceptions of the Major, the terrible crimes he has committed, and what he has done to them all in one way or another. I cannot allow for Mademoiselle Elizabeth's sentence to be negatively influenced by those in the house. I must help them see how their past actions have led to these unfortunate circumstances and losses of life. Perhaps I should remind them all of their participation in not only the workers' strike, but the resulting riots.
Those of you that are calling for the hanging of Mademoiselle Elizabeth, have you forgotten the roles you played? Your actions have been far from innocent.
Look, Detective, I see where you are going with this, but it's not going to work. So maybe the strikes were down to De Silva and Beckers. But don't try and drag me into their mistakes.
Really?
Mademoiselle Conrad, if you are so confident of your innocence, perhaps we should begin with you.
Convincing Mademoiselle Conrad to admit to her involvement will be no easy feat. She is strong-minded and has deflected questions in the past. Perhaps a more aggressive approach is in order. You would do almost anything for a headline, n'est-ce pas?
You don't need to imply it's only me that does. Ask any of my journalists, they'll say the same.
Even if in the process people are hurt? You knew the situation surrounding the strikes, and only sought to swell the anger in people and create further chaos. Mademoiselle, you so often have something to say, and now is not the time for silence.
You really are delusional. Maybe you should just keep your theories and claims to yourself.
Yeah. You used others for your own agenda, not considering the repercussions.
You obviously have no idea what goes on in my world. I would say stick to honest police work, but it seems that it's not in your field either.
You have allowed others to fall while you walk proudly across their backs.
Look, it's...
Mademoiselle, I do not have time for your excuses. Do you wish to state your direct involvement, or should I?
It's not... Okay, fine. Yes, the story was going nowhere. There was a deal on the table, and it was going to be done and dusted. Everything you said is true. I wanted the story. The scoop that would have blown the others out of the water. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. But I can see what I did wasn't right. I didn't think you had this side in you. I can see now why Angeline asked for you personally. You're not like other cops. It's clear it's the law and doing the right thing through and through with you. If you say it was self-defense, I believe you.
We can't just forget what that girl has done. It's not Jackie's fault, or any of ours, that she decided to do what she did.
Really?
Monsieur Beckers, you are the last person I expected to defend Mademoiselle Conrad. We talked only last night, and correct me if I am wrong, but you have already declared the role you played. To me, at least.
Yes, we talked. It's just not fair of you to attack Jackie like that, putting words in her mouth until she succumbs to your plan.
I know enough of Monsieur Beckers to know that pushing him will not yield the results I need. Playing the role of an ally may be the best way to approach him. The role of an ally. Not sure which of these that would be. I want to go for the first one. You did not consider how a strike could turn violent, endangering your men?
This is ridiculous. It was a peaceful strike. We only wanted what was deserved. Surely you do not think I sought to worsen the situation?
Monsieur Beckers, you have taken the words from my mouth.
Jackie was documenting everything to do with the strikes. She wanted our story to be heard and wanted to know how I was handling the negotiations.
And they were handled by yourself?
Naturally. If I cannot handle simple negotiations, I am not fit to be in the position I am in.
You take great pride in your work. Are you proud of the decisions made during the strikes?
I was only pushing for what my men deserved, what they needed. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, Detective. Surely you must know that. Nothing is ever simple, Detective. I'm sure you understand that better than anyone.
You have fought for those who do not have a voice. Surely you will not allow another one to be lost in the wind of social discrimination.
You're right, Detective. I have tried so hard to deny my part, but I know only too well that my decisions led to the death of those men. I know I cannot excuse what I've done. I just want you all to know that I am not a hateful or malicious man. I only wanted to prove that I was the right man. I have lived in other shadows for so long. I thought I would be able to finally step into the light and be the one that everyone remembered, not forgot. Monsieur da Silva offered me a deal and I turned it down. I thought I was doing right by the workers, but it was only myself I was thinking about.
What more proof do you need? He said it himself. I made a generous offer to reach a resolution, and he turned his nose up at it.
It was not that simple, though. An offer was made, but Monsieur Beckers and the workers would never have been forced into that position had their working conditions been satisfactory to begin with.
This is outrageous! Do you plan on blaming everyone for doing their jobs? I suppose it makes you feel better about yourself, doesn't it?
Although Monsieur da Silva eventually opened up, he was defensive when we discussed the matters of his blackmail, and that was a private conversation behind closed doors. I cannot imagine he will be forthcoming in front of the other guests. He is going to need some convincing to admit his faults again. If you were simply doing your job and treating your men fairly, there would not have been a strike to talk about.
It may be a
Ooh,
big
that was the
deal
wrong
to
one.
you, but I am used to workers not being happy with something. And most of the time, that unhappiness is directed at me.
Probably for good reason.
When you're in charge of your own factory, you'll understand. I handle the situation the best I could. If you think otherwise, maybe you have proved us all right, that you aren't the great detective you claim to be.
You were willing to pay an anonymous blackmailer that accused you of the same?
You said it.
Ooh.
Anonymous. I don't
I
know
mucked
them.
this conversation
It doesn't
up.
sound like they know me. When you have something people want, money, they will do anything, including constructing lies to get their hands on it.
Monsieur da Silva, you seem to have forgotten our previous conversations.
I recall them just fine, thank you. A police officer trying to manipulate facts to fit his own agenda. Shocking.
Intentional or not, your arrangement with the Major kindled the fire that started the riots.
Do you really think this is the first time blame has fallen at my feet? Although I don't think I've seen someone try so hard before to even convince themselves of what they are saying.
Have you not learnt enough already from having your factories closed? If you have any hope to return to normality, you must admit your faults and accept the repercussions.
I may have been a little harsh with my staff.
Yeah, we got through it eventually.
I only wanted to prepare them for the realities of this world. I was never given the opportunities that they have today, and I succeeded. All they do is demand more and more at the factories and at the house. How am I meant to keep a good profit if every franc is going to them?
You'd think that if you didn't have the opportunities that they had, you'd want them to have better opportunities, sir.
I offered what I could. I was willing to meet in the middle. But maybe that wasn't enough. Swallowing one's pride is no easy feat. But if it means that a young girl will receive fair judgment, I am prepared to do it.
Merci, monsieur, for your honesty. Admitting your responsibility is an honorable move.
What now, Detective? Is this absurdity going to continue much longer? Even after all your attempts, Detective, Felix was still murdered. Self-defense or not, she chose to hide what she had done because she knew what she had done was wrong. And she will be punished for it.
Yeah, it's not her that hit it, sir.
It was not choice to hide anything, madame. If in her position, I ask, what would you have done? The Major has already furiously thrown an object at you, barely missing your head, and now has hold of your arm.
I wouldn't have driven a knife into him, that I can tell you for sure. She is no fool. She intended to kill, not to defend.
Excuse me, you just told me what you wouldn't do. How about telling me what you would do? Madame Van den Bosch will be a much greater challenge, but my method of approach has worked with her before. If I am to sway her into seeing that Mademoiselle Elizabeth had no other option, I must persuade her that it was the Major's action that drove her to do what she did. You were the closest to the Major. His violent temper cannot come as a surprise.
Quite presumptuous of you to assume violence is in his nature.
He was a soldier.
Putting my own feelings towards the Major aside, he was not an honorable man, at least at some time in his life. He must have been for you to allow him in your house for so many years. So, even you confirm he had a history of aggression.
The Major was dishonorably dismissed from the British military. Are you aware of why?
I'm sure that is none of my business. Likewise, it is none of yours.
The Major shot and killed a number of unarmed prisoners as they were bound and terrified, posing no threat. His actions are unforgivable and should not be defended by anyone.
You judge him so harshly, but I return the question. What would you have done in his position?
Not shot prisoners of war? I don't see how this is such a I don't see why you think asking me this question back is such a win.
He had made mistakes. I will not deny that. In those moments when a decision had to be made, it fell to him, and he did what he saw fit.
Making a poor decision once is a mistake. Making it twice is a choice.
You do not know what he had been through.
S'il te plaît, madame. I ask that you consider everything you know of the Major carefully.
My friend has been murdered in cold blood, and you have the gall to ask me to save her?
I messed up the very last part of that conversation, and I'm gonna need to do it again, huh?
I will see to it that your superiors know of your crooked tendencies and wavering morals. Elizabeth will hang for this. There is no more a fitting punishment for her crime.
I knew that you had a cold heart, but never would I have expected to see you turn on a young girl so cruelly.
Excuse me?
She may have been the one that held the knife, but look at the monster that stood before her. It could not be clearer the type of man... No, I shall refrain from offending men everywhere. The type of creature that he was. He bribed, he extorted, he murdered. And yet when he attacks a young girl and she does us a favor and stops him for good, she is punished.
I'm sorry, Margot, but I am struggling to understand why you have involved yourself in this affair.
Because that girl does not deserve your judgment. You should be ashamed of yourself. You all should be for allowing this to happen.
Countess, I have talked at length of the Major's death, but not the reason for my invitation in the first place. When I last gathered you all together, I spoke of a blackmail ring that was rife in the area, and then of the letter that the Major had received.
Lady of the House keeps being absolutely lovely, right? Yeah. Cassandra.
Mademoiselle Angeline requested my help personally after she received such a letter threatening her family name. She felt I was the only one that could uncover the truth. And uncover the truth I have.
Get on with it, detective. Who dared try and extort my family and then have the gall to allow me to welcome them into my home?
If it was not for the honesty of a young servant, I would perhaps still be looking for the
For goodness sake, it was me.
She admits it.
Margot, how could you?
While it looked as though the Countess was helping the young women at the shelter, she was in fact only finding them positions of employment in wealthy homes to gather information on them and learn secrets that she would ultimately be able to use against them. Monsieur da Silva fell victim to her network of moles and was in turn blackmailed. It was quite the prosperous setup you had, knowing that they would not be prepared to lose their social standing if a secret was to find its way from where it had been hidden for so long.
That cannot be true, Margot. How could you do such a cruel thing?
That is rich, coming from you.
You are one of my oldest friends.
High and mighty, Madame Van den Bosch. You think you can do what you wish when you wish it and there will be no repercussions. You are as bad as all of them.
If I do not get a straight answer out of you, I will march you to the police station myself.
I'm surprised it took the Major this long to start living with you. He must have been on the edge for some time.
How dare you speak to me like that? In my own home.
A home you share with the father of your daughter for so many years, and she still remains none the wiser.
Ooh. Guess it's a good thing Angeline isn't in this room.
You have no right.
Oh, never mind.
Maman,
Angeline? Have you heard what she has admitted to? She is merely trying to make herself...
is what she says true? Felix, he was my father? That is the secret that the letter was talking about, isn't it? You told me that we had nothing to hide. Detective Poirot, were you aware of this?
Oui, mademoiselle. But it was not my place to repeat.
I don't understand. What about father?
Your mama betrayed the love of a good, honest man and played away behind his back and then kept it hidden for all these years like a lady of the night with her client list.
You will say no more. Angeline, I...
Did Felix know?
This is not an appropriate conversation.
He knew, dear girl. He knew the whole time. It is only dear Edwin that was blind to their deceit.
You will not talk of him like that. You will not talk of him at all.
If I don't, who will? You never deserved him. You don't even deserve the memory of him.
Countess, there is something that you still have not explained.
What more is there for her to say?
How long were you in love with the Viscount?
That's what I thought. That's where I thought that was going.
Margot? Is that true?
We were destined to be together. And then you turned up. And I was all but forgotten about.
But you were nothing more than friends.
And you made sure of that, didn't you? From the day you arrived, it was all about what you wanted and what you had to do to get it. You didn't consider Edwin at all. He was just a purse to you.
I loved my husband, and I miss him every day.
Loved him enough to stray?
Both of you, no more.
Please, Angeline, let me explain.
Maman, I do not wish to hear anything else from you.
Not even your own daughter wants to hear your lies anymore. Cassandra Van den Bosch, all alone.
How dare you!
Let's just leave
While
them
I
to
feel a
it.
sense of satisfaction and pride in solving both cases, there is still a part of me that is reluctant to revel in triumph. I am content with the unmasking of Comtesse de Vos as the blackmailer, and knowing that she will pay for her crimes. But it is the justice for Mademoiselle Elizabeth that worries me. She will stand in a court of law, and I can only hope that they can see she acted in self-defense. I must trust that our legal system and justice will prevail, and a fair sentencing will be given. In protecting her own life, she took the life of another. Perhaps the guilt she must live with is a greater punishment than any sentence she can receive. Comtesse de Vos was taken from Nemozinet House in cuffs and placed under arrest. Although she initially tried to plead her innocence, Inga, along with a number of other girls that the Comtesse had found employment for, came forward and made full statements. She was charged with 5 counts of blackmail and extortion and sent to a house of corrections, where she will have a new life to become accustomed to. Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna were also reprimanded for their participation. While they may not be facing time in prison, tampering with a crime scene and obstruction of a police investigation are certainly not something that houses and new employers will look positively on. Mademoiselle Angeline finally became Madame Demire, and together they took up residence in England, where Monsieur Demire continues to support and fight for fairness and equality in London. I am happy to say that we have remained in contact, and Madame Demire has become a regular correspondent of mine, and the latest joyous news is that they are expecting a child of their own.
Good for them.
After Madame Vandenbosch's secret was revealed to the world, her position in the social hierarchy was no more, disappearing in a moment. While she still resides in Belgium, I believe she has had to adapt to a far more modest way of life. A humbling experience for her, I am sure. Madame Demire has not mentioned her maman in a single letter. After the discovery of her real father and how she had been lied to for so many years, I am not surprised if her departure from Belgium was somewhat an act of separation from her maman. Mademoiselle Conrad left Nemoziné House the same way she entered, confident in herself and audacious in her opinions. Her report of the Major's murder at the house and the surrounding blackmails became one of the most talked about stories of the year. While there were certain details of her own involvement that did not make it to print, she was really quite complimentary about the detective at the heart of the case. Monsieur da Silva tried to continue in his position as factory owner and business entrepreneur, but after his accounts and business dealings were investigated following the details of his blackmail being made public in Mademoiselle Conrad's article, his illustrious business empire began to crumble and is now facing an international corporate investigation. Monsieur Becker stepped down from his position as union leader, accepting that he was no longer fit to represent the workforce that, in his words, he had let down on a scale of unmeasurable proportion. Although he is no longer the voice of the workers, he continues to support them from behind the scenes. Monsieur Zachariah and his brother made amends, and returning to his family home, and after sobering up, he was able to find the help that he required. I understand that he is now helping fellow soldiers with similar conditions.
Good for Zachariah.
And Mademoiselle Elizabeth. She stood before a court and was found guilty of second-degree murder. She was sentenced to time in a female correctional house on the outskirts of the city. Alone in a foreign country with no friends or family for support, it will certainly be a hard life for her there. Her mental and physical strength will surely be tested to their limits, but she could not go unpunished. Without repercussions, we would become a society of animals.
That's what happened to everyone.
The death of Elizabeth's beloved Luc has been at the center of everything. Had those in positions to help not acted with only themselves in mind, perhaps he would still be alive today, and the Major would have paid the price for his own crimes in the eyes of the law, not at the blade of a knife. The blood of Major Felix Egan will remain on Elizabeth's hands. A stain that wherever she is and whatever she may do, she will never be able to wash clean. However, it will remain as a reminder to not only her, but all of us, of what we as human beings are capable of to protect ourselves. We all have something that may be considered shameful or sinful, and it is how we deal with it that shows our true character. Those involved in the riots, the workers' deaths, and the Major's killing believed themselves to be untouchable. Whether it was from their social standing or their confidence in themselves, they learned that everyone is accountable for their actions. There is no exemption because of the suit you wear or the money in your bank account. There is no price to a man's life. It cannot be bought or traded or discarded. No man is better than another, including Detective Hercule Poirot.
And I suppose that's that. Don't worry about not being that active, it's fine. Alright. We're done. Game complete. I guess I'll have to pick something else for the Sunday slot for next week. So then, thank you very much for coming. It's been fun. If you're new here and you've enjoyed your time, please consider subscribing to the channel. My streaming schedule is posted both here on YouTube in the community tab and over on my Twitter, which is linked below. This was the last scheduled stream of the week, so there will be a new schedule up later tonight or tomorrow. And indeed, yes, I will see you Monday, I believe, for the next stream, which I think might be Twisted Wonderland, given that I believe the new chapter is up tomorrow. So we might go look at that. But I'll confirm when I post the schedule. So, once again, thanks for coming. And this is Kalla signing out. Will I roll for author? I haven't decided yet. Alright, anyway, see ya. Bye bye.